Good evening. It is so good to be with you all again on another Friday evening. Hey. This is Dr. Jonathan Shepard here with another episode of Ask the Doctors Facebook Live session sponsored through the Hope Health Systems, which is located in Baltimore, Maryland. I am glad, as I said again, to be with you all on another Friday evening episode. I am just so appreciative of how many people are out there watching and who will go back and replay. I have been tremendously grateful and blessed by hearing how so many people have watched and have been informed and received insightful information regarding the programming that we're offering each and every single week. The last couple of weeks have been tremendous. And as we've been going through so much during the month of November. November was a tough month. I am so glad that we made it out alive. That is not a joke. That's not sarcasm. I really am glad that we made it out alive. Another month. We had some of the worst data come in from the coronavirus during the month of November. And it looks like things are actually increasing. Here in Maryland, we experienced the highest number of coronavirus cases in one day. I think we're about 3,600, something like that, 3,600 cases in one day. We had never broke the 3,000 mark, and we crushed it today. Not necessarily a number that I am proud to say that we crushed, but we crushed it today. And that lets me know that in the state of Maryland, we have a lot of work to do. We have so much that we need to be mindful of. Our mayor-elect, Brandon Scott, has quarantined because he was exposed to the coronavirus. What is that telling you is that there's so many people who've been exposed in governmental officials. This virus does not care, does not discriminate against who it will infect. And so we just come on live, as I do each week, just to, make sure that people are aware and also bring some hope, because in this, we will get through it. The vaccines are continuing to be produced, continue to be tested. And next week, I hope to have my friends on with me from the medical community who can provide some more insight in regards. So please stay tuned for next week's episode. Again, Dr. Shepard here, Hope Health Systems. I just want to send a quick shout out to all the clinicians and therapists from Hope Health Systems, all those employees who work alongside me. Our headquarters is in Woodlawn, Maryland, but we, as you see through this podcast, well, really this broadcast, we are reaching across the country. We're reaching across even the waters. And we've heard from so many people in relation to the topics that we have dealt with. So with that said, today, I am honored to have with me two women that I highly respect and admire. And that is no joke. I don't say it because they can hear me, but I do admire them and for the work that they do. And today, as we're preparing for the last 4 weeks of the year, wow, December 2020 is here. I remember December even last year. I had a tough December last year. December 2019 was a tough one. That was the month in which my grandmother died. And so I remember that month very fondly, but also with heavy heart. And so, many of us, as we go through the holiday season, there's a lot of baggage that we carry. There's a lot of things that we go through as we are entering into the holiday season. Grief, unforgiveness. We think about family members who we don't like, family members who we try not to see. I guess this year won't be that big of a deal because we should be isolating. But there's so many of us who have experienced so many different things during the holiday seasons. And want to just bring to light, as we're closing out this year, some topics that hopefully will prepare you for the next new year, for 2021. And I thought that this topic today was so appropriate because there is so many people who have been hurt, and in this pandemic, hurt because of no fault of their own many times, but hurt and not able to move on. And so today we're going to talk about forgiveness and how to be able to move forward. So forgiveness and moving on. There's been so much that has happened this year. A lot of people are bitter. A lot of people are like, man, I just want to cancel this year, the cancel culture, as I've talked about in so many episodes. We can't cancel this year. This year is not to be canceled. But with that said, we want to help you all to move beyond and to forgive. Forgiveness is one of those things that we can talk about, but to apply it is a whole different game. And so I am so fortunate to have two people that I respect in their own rightful places who are going to provide some real life application on how to be able to forgive and move on. We're going to have some exciting, some enthusiastic conversation. I am so ready to have this conversation. So I'm going to bring on our first guest, Dr. Antonique Edwards, and she's going to come on and greet and just say hello. And then I'll bring our next guest up, Dr. Edwards.
Hey, how are you?
I am fine. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm happy to be here, Dr. Shepherd. Thank you so much. It was very interesting to hear you say that you didn't just say that you had respect for us because you were on live today. And I would like to echo that sentiment towards you, though, for all the great work that you were doing, especially in such a crucial time for people and the challenges that they are facing during this pandemic. I salute you for the dedication that you have to helping people. So it's a privilege to be here as a guest with you tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I've been with Dr. Edwards on some of the broadcasts that she has sponsored and put together. And it's just good to be able to not only return the favor, but to be able to move forward in this type of discussion. And so thank you. Tell the people real quickly whether you do, and then we'll bring our next guest on.
I currently serve as the assistant principal of student services at a public school, a secondary school, not grades 9 through 12. And so this is very endearing to me, as a matter of fact, and I think it's probably more of something to highlight than any of the other quote unquote accolades or things that would sit in someone's resume. I was meeting with a student yesterday who is struggling with forgiveness. Own family system. And I said, let me tell you, it's so interesting that you would be in my office right now. We're having a conversation about forgiveness tomorrow. So let's talk. Wow. And so those opportunities to deal with young people in the public and those who surround them around such topics is certainly important. But I am an administrator, a school administrator, and have been for the last 14 years. I've been in public school for 20 years. And like I said, just happy to be here. I'm not going to go through a resume. I'm just grateful.
No, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Absolutely. And next up, my friend, the doctor. Now, no, she's shaking her head already. You know how people calling people doctors. But yes, Misha Maynard is here. I so appreciate her. I appreciate the true friendship and the realness. And come on, greet the people with your smiling face and let them know what you do.
Well, I have to echo Dr. Edwards. First, let me give accolades to you. You have always been impressive to me, and to see you on these platforms and reaching out to people to make sure that we're offering up resources into the community to make sure that we're well and that we're safe in the midst of this pandemic and the shift that we are in. And so I appreciate you just for the invitation. And I pray God's blessings continue on you. I am Misha Maynard, and I'm the CEO of Apex, and we are out on the field, actually on the front line now, because we provide COVID testing and tracing Yes, in multiple communities, we work with public organizations, and we provide the COVID testing and tracing for them. We have a specific model that meets a community, so we're able to keep them informed and keep them as safe as possible. But my real job, as I say that, is I am the COO of Cathedral Praise Church in Nashville, Tennessee, and I serve along with my father, Bishop Jerry L. Maynard. And so that's where my heartbeat is at, is serving the people, being in the community, being a community advocate for people's health and people's lives. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Oh man, I told you we have some top-notch folks in the house today. And so I really appreciate you being here and taking time out of your schedule. So let's dive on in. Those who know me know I like to sit back and just listen to our guests and listen to the resources and listen to their stories as to how we're going to apply forgiveness today. And we've had some offline conversations about how we're going to approach this topic because it requires transparency of all of us. It requires some vulnerability. And so, I really want to let people know that if you're struggling with forgiveness, call up somebody right now and let them know they need to watch this show. If you know there's somebody that you need to ask forgiveness from, call them up and say, let's watch this show together. If you know you've been wronged, let's figure out how we can let that thing go for 2020 and start with a new slate in 2021. I really feel that. And so I think that as we have this conversation, it's going to allow certain people to say, hey, let's squash this thing and let's move on. So let's start with just some of the questions. All right. Dr. Edwards, let's start with you. All right. The first question we have up is just tell us a little bit about your story. And now Dr. Edwards might trying to hear the whole version of the story. Now, I told you, these are my friends.
We're going to be very real on tonight. So
yeah, so we're going to go back and forth. I'm just telling you right now. We're going to laugh. So I just had to break that ice right now. Yes, we are professional, but we're going to laugh. So we're going
to be our real selves on today, and that is amazing. That's wonderful. But no, I will tell my story with brevity. Okay. But we were having discussion. One of the things that Dr. Shepherd asked of me was there anything mentioned in terms of the book that I wrote, Daddy, Where Are You?, about forgiveness? Because people know that I've been very candid in that book about my personal experiences. And so for me, growing up in a household where my dad had been an alcoholic, he smoked, weed and all these kinds of things or what have you, was dealing with his own personal traumas, growing up as a little girl in that particular place and not necessarily having him show up to everything that I felt like where he needed to be, led me to a place of needing to provide like forgiveness. Then my dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and was debilitated his health for a long period of time. He was hospitalized for over 20 years. And so that is a very traumatic experience to have to live through, even when you don't understand trauma necessarily. But as I was really in preparation for this and I was thinking about my story and the question that you asked about my father, I realized that there were some other elements in the book that probably spoke greater even than that of what through my father about places of forgiveness. And I started recognizing that in my thought process of it, that it's not always just a person. Sometimes it's a process. Sometimes it's the things like institutionalized racism. It's the experiences that we have with things that we cannot control. And so if I had a period of length to talk about it, I would be like, oh, let me talk about the things that happened with friends. Let me talk about the abandonment here. Let me talk about the issues that arose from this or injustices that I felt in the workplace. But specifically, I think for tonight, if I were to kind of hang my hat on a specific issue, it would be that when I was in high school, I was the victim of an attempted rape. And so of all of those things that were, I think, most difficult for me to find a place of forgiveness, it was that. It was that thing that took years for me to not walk around with anger and anguish and resentment and things that I think that I will be able to speak to on tonight, to say to people who are listening, trust me, I understand what it's like to be bound by unforgiveness.
Wow. Woo. That was heavy. Thank you. And I'm looking to unpack some of that material as we move forward. Hey, I don't know if to call you Dr. Misha or, but come on, let's hear a little bit about your story and how the ability to forgive has impacted that particular story.
So, and thank you, Dr. Edwards, for sharing. I think that's one of the things that I have found, especially from women, and then more specifically for Black women. We don't like to tell the story because we've been told that we're supposed to keep it at home. So I just want to say thank you, because that just takes so much strength, and that shows right there. But when I was talking to you, Dr. Shepherd, and we were talking about some approaches to this, and one of the areas that we did discuss, and I don't mind sharing, is divorce, and then more specifically, divorce in church, and having to get past or move past institutions, organizations, and a community that's supposed to be there for healing. The places are supposed to be there for forgiveness, because we are built on forgiveness of sin. That's what God said He sent His Son Jesus down for. And so along those lines, when you enter into an institution and you think that this is where this is going to be at, is that you would have forgiveness in ministry or in church, and you don't find it there. I would say this, I was in an unhealthy marriage. And in this unhealthy marriage, I chose to stay longer than probably I should have, because I felt like the church was not going to accept me if I got the divorce.
Wow.
So that's something to think really, really to deal with. A lot of times people are staying in unhealthy places because they don't feel like they have the community or the support or those people around them to help them navigate and move on. So when you talk about the forgiveness piece of it, I didn't find trust for a long period of time in church. I am a PK, grew up in church, but the trust in the institution, the organization, not in God, but the trust in the institution, organization, it left for a long period of time. And it took not only forgiveness of the body of believers, but also forgiveness of myself, because I began to blame myself. Why didn't I make it? Why didn't my marriage survive? How come I couldn't stick with it? How come I couldn't get those 50 years in, like so many people are standing up and testifying about? And so I internalized it. But it took forgiveness. And I'm sure we'll get to that place where that pivoting point of moving on. But my pivoting point really was found back in the Word of God that says that, if I don't forgive sin, God won't forgive my sin. And that sins not only forgiving other people of their sins, but really more so me of my sin. And so that was my pivoting point.
Absolutely. Wow. This is, first of all, your opening statements have just really struck a chord with me. And so as we move forward in this conversation, please feel free to just comment after one another. I don't necessarily have to moderate. So thank you, first of all, Misha, for just affirming Dr. Edwards. And again, I affirm you, Dr. Edwards, and the courage, because I want to go back to you now as they have delivered the audience who's out there. Thank you for watching their opening statements as to what we're going to delve into. Dr. Edwards, to take it a step further, to dive in, an attempted rape. Wow, that's such a violation. And it's such a heaviness, because when you talk about how that affects a person moving forward, I have seen, I've counseled, I've worked with people who have actually experienced that and have not been able to move forward. So just take us a little bit further. How were you able to, move forward?
So I think one of the important things is, sometimes, and I can echo here, Ms. Maynard, is that um, I think sometimes we think that we should be superheroes and it should happen just like this, and the church is going to be there, and that's just going to be the safe haven, and so all of a sudden things are going to just be well. But there were some hardships for me, and wondering why I couldn't get through this even with the help of the church. Even being ashamed to go and share things. Right? I had a hard time because the account or occurrence that happened for me was when I went with this person to their household. And so I had a very difficult time forgiving myself, because I felt like I put myself in harm's way. And so I didn't really want to have discussions about it or what have you, because I was so busy trying to deal with, can I forgive me? But then, because that is such a thing where never had had an experience like that before, where power is taken from you. When you feel completely and utterly powerless, how demeaning that experience is. And so I found myself, before getting to a place of forgiveness, being in a place where I was trying to hide things. I didn't want to approach it. I didn't want to deal with it. I was resentful of the experience. I was saddened by things. I couldn't watch a Law and Order episode, if it saved my life, without crying and being distraught or what have you, things that I can identify with other person's pain. It was years, not days, not months, not weeks, not, oh, I just talked to my girlfriends over some coffee, and then it's like, oh, you should let that go and blah, blah, blah. No, it was years later. That was a high school experience. I was in college. I had been going to church. I was in ministry or whatever, and didn't even, I don't think, understand the ramifications of the weight of unforgiveness that I was carrying. And it was just like one day, almost as if it exploded. It was hitting me in the face, and I realized, oh, I had suppressed a lot of this. I tried not even remember it. I tried to, it's not going to affect me. I got this going on. I'm successful over here. That, that's something I've gotten over. But no, it was just in the background. So the process for me towards forgiveness really had a lot to do. And I love that she said this earlier on. I didn't mention being a minister, but my love for God is what helped me out of this situation. Yes, I went to church and I heard the preached word, and yes, I had the saints around me or what have you, but it took my fellowship with God for me to be able to get out of this place, and the understanding that I needed his forgiveness. He expects for us to forgive, like all of that bundled up in my relationship, and knowing that he still cares for me and I can move forward was the beginning of my process of healing.
Woo. Again, I'm just like, literally, you have captivated me, and so I'm hanging on literally every word that you all are saying. Mrs. Misha, come on and tell us a little bit about how you got to that place. But I also want to speak to the support systems, because that's what you all are drawing out. You're drawing out the support teams that so many people have in place, that they find in place through the faith-based organizations. But there's some people out there who are not connected to faith-based organizations. So,
that's right.
So speak to even some of those support systems. But I, again, tie it back into, what you shared already.
So, and when you say that the support systems, one of the things that I and this, well, both of you all, because you're in the field, that most of Blacks, African Americans, we don't reach outside. We don't go to psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors in order to help us navigate. And I'm not for sure, because I've only been in the Church of God in Christ, but that I don't think it was projected. It was not really projected that was a safe place and something that was accepted to go and find help. But I think that if people can understand that our behavior follows our belief. So whatever we believe, that's how we behave. So if I believe that I'm a bad person, if I believe that I've done wrong, if I believe that I'm the cause of the breakup of my relationship, of my marriage, that if I could have just done, if I could just been a better wife, if I could have just been quiet, or if I could have spoke up more, if I could have just whatever that ... is, then my behavior starts following that. And I'm trying to figure out in my behavior, what could I have done better? So then I began trying to prove myself that I'm good or that I'm better than whomever. So now I start seeking validation from other people that will say to and confirm and affirm that I'm better.
Wow.
So now I'm doing the extra stuff. I'm just out there, and it's presenting itself in so many ways. And so I just know, for me, that's what happened to me. I almost lost my identity in the midst of all of this, because I didn't know what my voice was. I didn't know who I was, because I felt like if I didn't do it the church way. The world accepted the fact that I was divorced. They were okay with it, but I knew that wasn't right for me either. And so I kind of, went back and forth. It was on this teeter-totter of, where do you fit in? How are you? And so then you enter into other unhealthy relationships, right? And then those don't end up well. And so then who's the common denominator? Me. So that's why I had to trace it back to, hey, Misha, you got to get you together. What's going on with you? And then really, instead of seeking validation and affirmation outside and in other places, communities and churches and friends and whatever that may be, I had to really begin to, as we do, again, my relationship with God, and allow for him to be the mirror, and allow for him to say to me that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I'm okay. I'm okay with my kooky, crazy self. I'm okay. However I am, I'm okay. And he loves me enough. And so that had to get that. I had to believe that. That first. And can I just share this? This just came up to me. Let me tell you how bad it was. And this is not, as Dr. Edwards is saying, this is not something that I found like 20 years ago. This was like probably about, I would say about 10 or 12 years ago. I was in the lobby at the church here in Nashville, Tennessee, and my middle brother, walked up to me and said, "You look so beautiful today." I didn't know what to do with that.
Wow.
It literally paralyzed me for a man so close to me to tell me that I looked beautiful. I didn't feel beautiful. My identity, I didn't know what was going on. That's so many things. You all know the emotion was just there. Now I've been preaching and teaching and flying all over and empowering people. But when he said that, and I've shared this testimony in the pulpits that I had the privilege to minister at, is that that was one of the moments that I realized that I had not gotten past some of the hurt, the pain, the residue was still there, because someone gave me a compliment that I adore, my brother, and I did not know what to do with that.
That's so powerful, because there is, regardless of whether it's church, even outside of the walls of the church, there are so many opportunities that we have to empower people in general, right? So it doesn't have to even be with the word, just as women lifting up other women, or persons in your family or friendships or what have you. And sometimes you're so busy doing that too, you don't even recognize what you're missing in yourself. You're constantly giving out to others, and then there's so many things that are falling apart within. And then one day you look at yourself and you're like, what is going on? Wait a minute, I think we got to put the brakes on this and fix this up. One of the things that I wanted to say in terms of resources that I think was beneficial to me, as much as for me in my personal story, God was my help. But simultaneously, I had the benefit. Now, when we did our opening story, I also made reference to my father. But because of my father's issues when I was younger, I also had gone to counseling groups for children of alcoholics, right? And so my mother had done that when I was younger. And even though it was not a long time and sustained, the door had been open to me to say that it was okay to have conversation with somebody else and they can offer support to you. So I grew up as a child saying that even when everything isn't, wonderful or whatever, you can go outside of the house. And I grew up in a household now. I say, your business is, our business, our business. Don't be going out in the streets telling everybody what's going on up in here. But when it came time to the space of desperation and need, it was more important that to my mom that she had children that were whole. And so I took that with me. And even though I had some struggles and some hardships, remember now too, when I went to school and my undergrad degree started in psychology, and then I changed over to sociology and went into counselor education. So simultaneously for me, I was sitting in classroom environments where it said, this is good, this is healthy. You should, share your words with other people. You should go and seek, advice or have a listening ears elsewhere, that go to places where there is no judgment, go to places that aren't necessarily familiar, because a lot of times our fear is that when we tell our story that, Misha done known me for 10 years and she just don't believe such and such and such, and she ain't gonna trust this or what have you. So sometimes it's just good to be able to hear an unbiased voice, right? And to have somebody else listen to us. I can recall in the very first class that I took for counselor education, my professor saying, all right, let's ask now, what do you guys think is going to happen here? And people raising their hands and they said, we're going to give advice to people, and he's like, no, that's not what counselors do. Right. And I remember Dr. Whitmer saying to us, I need for you all to know that one skill that counselors have and what we want to develop here is something that many people just don't have in the world, and that is effective listening. And so he was like, our goal here is to teach you how to become effective in hearing other people. 9 times out of 10, they don't want you to tell them what to do. They want to be able to be heard. And so I think there's so much power in the place of forgiveness when we just allow people to tell their story and to be heard.
Absolutely. That right on point. So what I want to do is shift now to this statement, and this is right in flow of the conversation. There's a statement, and I sent this to you all earlier, that says, forgiveness is me giving up my right to hurt you for hurting me. Forgiveness is me giving up my right to hurt you for hurting me. And so because you all have backgrounds and professions that relate to mental health, I want us to talk a little bit about how unforgiveness can lead to a mental health disorder. There are some situations that if we do not forgive, it can actually lead to you being disordered. Disordered meaning inability to function properly. Misha, why don't you start out first?
Well, and I appreciate that, giving up our rights. And I think just in the climate that we are in, we've been really focused on our rights. And so I think when you talk about giving up something, because just off the cuff, we are self-centered individuals. So who wants to give up yourself? No, I mean, on your own, no one. And so when you talk about having to release yourself so that you don't act out, and then also releases other people. But when you don't do that, when you keep those emotions in, internalize them, there are so many sicknesses that come, not just mental, but physical as well. And it has been traced back that unforgiveness can cause cancer. It has been traced back to that mental breakdowns. It has been traced back to this. A lot of times what ends up happening is you can find yourself begin to isolate yourself. And when you stay away from other people, we know that this is telling us right now, socially, we are people of touch and feel. So if you start isolating yourself and not being able to be touched or not willing to reach out and touch other people, you begin to go against the very nature that you have been designed and developed and programmed to do. And so you will find yourself, and that anytime you stop exercising, you become weak in those areas. You become weak in your communication, weak in your socialization, and then pretty soon, weakness ends up dying off. And so you will end up dying. Now, you may not die a physical death, but there's something in you that actually will literally either die or lay dormant. And so those are some of the impacts that happen when we don't forgive, when we don't release, when we don't move on. And so those are some of the reasons why we do need to press past the pain, the pressures, the stressors, so that we can move on.
I think that, as we think about it, it's a layered thing. It builds upon itself. If we don't address certain things and we're holding on instead to a right to be angry. I have a right to be mad, right? Do you know what you did to me? You know how you made me feel? I'm justified in being angry with you. How dare you? And you deserve everything that you can possibly get. And I deserve to walk around here angry and mad and woeful if I want to.
Yeah.
Pitiful, right? And we want the world to know too. Sometimes we do that because we want people to see the pain that we have endured, and it's shameless before people. The problem with that is that when we put ourselves in those positions, the layering comes from, now I am stuck in a place of a former action that has taken place, right? I continually am thinking backwards rather than forward. I'm focused on a memory. I can't move forward because I'm stuck in the past. I can't deal with the now because my now is the past. I can't get anywhere. And so my growth becomes stunted. And so as I sit there and I'm thinking over and over and over again, what negative thing has happened to me? What has made me the victim? What has paralyzed me? Now I'm sitting still and I allow myself to get into a place of depression. Before I was just angry and sad. Now I'm depressed and I don't want to get up and I don't want to do anything. And it starts moving into other aspects of my life. Now it's not just my emotions. Because I'm depressed and I'm sad and I don't go to work. Now it's messing with my finances. Because I'm in that place, now it's impacting my children and my relationships. And so it starts creeping into all of these other elements and facets of our life. And if it is not that, if it's not a place of depression, because not all people move to depression, sometimes they move to places of hostility. We have so much anxiety because we know that we either fight or we flee, right? When we have lots of traumatic things that happen in our lives. And so then you wondering, well, Lord, why is this the girl going off on everybody and acting so crazy? Well, she has unforgiveness. She's angry. She's packed it in. And now she's just lashing out at everybody she sees, or he, right? I don't want to just make this one gender thing because there are a lot of men who we sometimes don't want to deal with when it's in terms of forgiveness and stuff. It judges everybody. It doesn't matter what our gender is. But those are the things that then people look at and they're like, oh, yeah, but we have a right to do this. But that right to feel that right to hold on to your pain also opens up the right for you to experience a lot of negativity in your life that probably would not have existed. And so it becomes hurtful.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, the comment line is blowing up, y'all. So I'm loving this. The audience is engaged. So I'm going to start going to some of the questions because I'm going to save one of the last question for the end. Because again, I can already feel that you all are going to deliver some powerful statements at the end that's going to just help free up some more people. There's 2 questions that's already been asked. Now, I'm grateful that Nick South is out there. He is a faithful viewer, has been one of the presenters on this podcast or broadcast. He asked this question, and I'm not sure which one of you I want to tackle it first. But does unconditional love require one to remain in a relationship, marriage, friendship, church, etc., under all conditions? If you forgive, can you still leave?
Shondo, I'm gonna let, because you had the relationship, I'm gonna let you deal with it, but
Just because you forgive, can you still leave? The answer is yes. Amen. I mean, that's just the answer is yes. And I think that's one of the things that we need to relearn And that is, I think we have projected that if you say I forgive you, then all of a sudden we're supposed to start singing Kumbaya, my Lord, and everybody just hold on to each other, and we should go to all the family reunions, and we're just going to just act like nothing happened. You cannot act like nothing happened. You still have to address that. The forgiveness is just the beginning. It is not the end of this. It is the beginning to open up the opportunity for us to start moving on and walking towards freedom. And so a part of that is with the forgiveness, even if you leave, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think bad things leaving. What you don't want to do is you don't want to remain a hostage. Okay. So if you're leaving because you're still hurt, there's still pain, you still need to deal with those things, those emotions, you talked about those rights. So you still need to deal with those things, but you can still leave. Yes. Ultimately, yeah, you can leave.
Yes, goodbye.
I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. Just leave right, but you can leave. Just leave right.
Oh, that's good though.
That's awesome. Oh, no, I hear that. Just leave.
Because you're gonna take your way wherever you go.
Or just say leave.
I used to say to the kids all the time when I was a school counselor, look, I know all these people have these expectations of you and all this stuff that, whatever. But there's this one reality. You have but one body to live in, and you're going to take it with you wherever you go. So if you don't fix it right here, if you don't deal with it right here, you can go somewhere else, but it's going with you. Mm-hmm. One body. So you can make it seem like it's okay. And if you leave wrong, you're going to leave wrong with a whole lot of luggage.
Way down. Yeah, absolutely. So let's tackle this next question from Jeremiah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jeremiah, for following. And I've seen so many other folks who are out here, and this conversation is generating so much, again, comments and questions, and I love it. Jeremiah, he asked this question. My question is, as you find yourself losing yourself, your identity, how do you find yourself or your identity again? So
is that to me because I talked about the identity?
It's to either one of you all, that will want to tackle that.
Well, I'll just say this, that for me, I had to redevelop myself. So that's something that just happened. I don't even know who that person was beforehand. So I had to actually, mission had to come back to life. And I had asked myself and asked the Lord, who am I supposed to be? And so over a period of time, I have evolved into so many. I'll be honest with you, every day I'm evolving. But it took that. It actually took me seeking God and just asking God, what was his will for my life? And who am I supposed to be? And I know that just sounds very spiritual, but it really was. I mean, that's just what happened for me, because I had to tap into who am I supposed to be on this earth and what is my passion? And I just found myself always drawn to helping people, empowering people, and encouraging people. So the more I did that, the more I found myself in peace and being happy and being joyful and loving and caring. And so the more that I do that, the more Misha comes to the surface, and I get to learn a little bit more about her. So that's just me.
Dr. Edwards.
I think that's amazing. And I for those persons who are out there who are not faith-bound, who may not necessarily have relationship with Christ, what have you, you will always find that it would be very hard pressed for a believer or a Christian to say that them finding purpose and identity would ever be separated from him. So it's not that we try to spiritualize anything on this particular segment, but the reality of the matter is that to have an identity when you are a Christian, the only place you really can go is God. And he helps you to find yourself. And but I will say this, I think that there's a process in that happening. Even after, in this COVID season, my dad did pass away. He passed away in June this year. I found myself having to go on a lot of walks and things like that. But part of that was reclaiming my strength. Part of it was finding my identity again, because now I had a natural father figure that was missing, and that is a part of who I am. Good, bad, or indifferent, it is still part of who I am. And my growing up and the recognition of that. And so there were just a lot of questions and things. Now, for me, I took my questions to God. For those other persons who are out there, you know, it may be a counselor or someone who you might have to, or, you know, other family members or friends or your mom who you might need to sit down with and have conversation with to get to that place. But for me, part of that identity, finding and seeking things, was asking lots of questions, right? Where did I start? How did I get here? What needs to happen next? Where have my places of contentment been? Where have I been dissatisfied? And how am I going to live now with who I am now? And what makes me happy in this place, right? And so I think those are just some of the questions that you have to get to in finding your identity, and looking at what you're good with, and not allowing other people to put labels on you and classifying you as what they believe you are, and you searching yourself for what you know you are.
Very, very, very good. And I'm ready to shift now to this question that I've been holding on, because this has been such a tremendous year of loss, a tremendous year of grief, a tremendous year of setbacks for many people. For even people, it's been even a tremendous year of doubt, of people not really even understanding who they are. And so I really think that that question was really appropriate, because forgiveness can tie into who you are. That's so interesting. It really is, and I could take that a little step further. I feel myself going there, but I want
Go ahead.
I want to. Yeah,
Go ahead.
you know, yeah, it really is just something about, can forgiveness really be a true part of a person's character? Does it really identify who you are, or can it be one of those identifying traits or attributes of who you are? And that's scary for me. Why do I say scary? Because I think about so many people who think so highly of themselves, and they say that they're this, they say that they're that, but yet when it comes to forgiveness, it's like they get an F.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder. And I know, and this year has been one of those years for me where I had to examine myself, where people have wronged me. And I had to literally say to myself, Shepherd, it's okay. You have to let it go. And I knew it was okay when I was starting to be able to talk about it. Now, you have to be careful who you talk to, but I knew that it was all right. I had to let go of the shame. It was almost as if it was a shame for me, or fear that if I talked about it, that somehow I was stirring something up. And I had to let that shame go. Why am I even saying that? Because for those persons who are out there, again, I'm chief medical director of a mental health organization. You got to know that it's okay if you are struggling with forgiveness to go talk to somebody. Talk to somebody who's qualified, like these two people who are right here, or whoever is in your area. You got to find somebody so that you can learn how to let it go. Let me shift now. 2020 has ushered in an extraordinary amount of pain, hurt, grief, and loss. People are stuck, paralyzed in their current situations, if you would, and many blame themselves. What steps can you offer to assist that person in getting unstuck and moving forward? I want to hang our hat here as to how do we help people who are stuck. And a lot of folks are stuck, not just stuck in their home, they're stuck in their head. They're stuck on, this is it. This is the end. I will always be like this. We'll always have a rift. I'll always be mad. I'll always not be the person who I thought I should be because of what happened to me. How can we provide some assistance, some steps, if you would, in getting those persons unstuck and moving forward. Who wants to start?
I think I'm gonna cheat a little bit and use my notes because and then I think it will help with time because you all know I could talk a lot. So look at Dr. Shepherd. I'm gonna forgive him for laughing right now.
He's keeping it real over here.
To be stuck and to be paralyzed and all the things that have gone on. It's just some things that I thought about. It's not like I went and I looked into any special psychology books or anything like that. But I think first we need to accept the fact that we need to heal, and you have to acknowledge the hurt. You can't move forward if you don't first acknowledge that you are hurting and that you're in a place of unforgiveness. And we have to be in a place of have a willingness to allow other people to help us, not expecting to control everything. Sometimes we are just trying to fix everything ourselves. We want to have total and control over anything that goes on in our life, but we have to be willing to open the door to let other people in. Talking about our feelings with people and letting go of misnomers about sharing our business with people. We have a lot of thoughts about, it ain't none of their business. They don't need to know this. Well, if we're stuck in that place and nobody knows, no one can help. Going back to that child that I said I spoke with on yesterday, he said, well, I just don't feel like I need to talk to people about all of this or whatever. And then when I gave her some tips or some things, she's like, well, I didn't know that. And I said, but had you talked to somebody last year about this, you would have known that. And then these things would have happened. She said, but it won't change. Just when you talk to people about your issues doesn't mean that it's going to change or make it better. And I said, no, that particular thing may not change, but other circumstances in your life can. The information that you receive, it gives you knowledge to be able to move forward. And so we have issues with that. I think we have to be careful, especially in this season, about isolating ourselves and being stuck, alone. As, Misha said it so well, you just don't want to be in a place where you are just stuck by yourself, because we want to be touched by people. We were made to be touched. And so I really appreciated that comment by her. And I think that we have to be careful too, that when we are isolating ourselves, that we put ourselves in a place where our thoughts are repetitive. When we're by ourselves, we get to give an amen to how we think. There is nobody challenging our thought process. And so when our thinking is negative, it's just negative behind negative behind negative. Yep, and that's right. And that's how, how when you were younger, I'll say, right, and you were sad that somebody broke up or whatever, and you listened to sad songs and you sat in your 80s cream. We just perpetuate the problem, right? So we gonna listen to something sad when we're sad. That's what we do as humans. And so we have to be able to open ourselves up and realize that other people, that just because other people are bitter does not mean that it's the way we have to handle things. I think for some people who are in families, there's a lot of bitterness, and we hold on to unforgiveness because we see other people modeling that. There's other people that they didn't forgive. So we feel like it's okay. It's a license in our family. We the family of unforgiveness. We the friends of unforgiveness. We a gang of unforgiving people. So, I mean, you ever seen that people hang out with each other? They all everybody got an issue with somebody. It's just like nobody can help anybody because we all think the same. And then just getting help through, the mental health, the spiritual well-being, and physical activity. So seeing a counselor, a therapist, a spiritual leader, attending support groups, praying, exercise, yoga, mindfulness activities. There's so many things that can be done to help, move beyond where we are. And these last two things I want to share with you, which is to recognize that we have power over ourselves, right? And so it's really important for us to know that we have the ability to move forward. We don't have to ask for anybody to give us permission to move forward in our life. So exercise your right to allow yourself to be happy. And then lastly, for the saints of God who are here on today, to know that you don't have to get revenge with anybody. Let vengeance belong to God. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we move in that vein, we're okay.
And that's for believers or non-believers, because getting revenge, just ends up typically being detrimental to you. There's normally not a good result when you go out and try to do something at the same level or even worse than what was done to you. Again, it goes back to that statement about forgiveness is giving up our right to hurt someone. Because you really did have, quote unquote, a right to go back and do that. But that's what forgiveness is. It's about giving up that right. So, wow, that was some very good tips, some very good steps. So I see why Misha allowed for you to go first, because she went.
Allowed? No.
She had them all. You saw she was not her. She wrote them and sent them to me. No, I'm just.
See, they recorded. I got it. And let me just say this real quick before you go forward. Yes, I have two intelligent women on here, but let me tell you, forgiveness is something that men have to do. And I have done a show about that just about 2 months ago when I had a gentleman on who forgave the man who murdered his own brother. If you want to go back and look at that show, I believe that was the second Friday in October. And so I dealt with men at that time. So just want to let you know, this is not a sexist type of thing. I'm just trying to be conscientious of what I do at a particular time. But yeah, absolutely. Men and women. And thank you, because the tips you've been giving have been neutral, gender neutral. And then, yeah.
When I'm almost hesitant to say this. I can't even remember if it's in the book. I think it may be. It's such an open dialogue, but I'm going to say it because it's true. But when I was in high school and I had that experience, I had some friends who were connected to gang activity. I wasn't in a gang, I was in whatever, but you know people. And I was given the opportunity. It was asked of me whether I wanted that individual who had brought me harm to be taken out. And I think about so many times my answer was no. It's like all you have to do is say the word and it's a done deal.
Wow.
To this day, I'm like, God, I am so grateful that my anger and my frustration and my sadness did not move me to make a decision in the moment that I would have to live with for the rest of my life and to bring me into a greater place of detriment. And I think that it's so important for people to recognize that when you carry unforgiveness, sometimes it puts you in a place where you can make some really horrible decisions.
No, that needed to be said. That needed to be said. Thank you. Misha.
Well, and everything that Dr. Edwards said and shared, I think it was very important. I really couldn't add to that. I do want to say something that she shared about the community, and you just mentioned this as well. We talked about hurting people, hurt people.
Yeah.
Free people, free people.
Okay.
So when you're ready to move past the pain, the hurt, the disappointment, for forgiveness, you have to look at your community. Who's in your intimate space? Who you're hanging out with? You just said that. Who you're having conversations with, who you're talking with, who you're walking with. When you're ready to move forward, you got to start reaching out. You've got to build that confidence and be bold enough to reach out to people who are already freed. People who are still bound are not going to help you get freed.
Wow.
So you got to identify, find someone that you can reach who is already free. We're here today, the three of us are on here, because Dr. Shepherd, Jonathan, connected with people that he said already are freed. I'm going to bring people on who have been in some situations, but or have moved past those situations. But in order for you to connect with us, you had to be free. Now, we're not going to sit here and have a conversation with you, Dr. Shepherd, if you weren't free. Dr. Edwards, myself, we're not doing that. So
That's right.
all of us have moved past some things. So I want to encourage whoever those persons are that are out there that may be going through something right now in this season. And this has been an upside down season. Everything has collapsed. I tell this all the time. Every system has been touched and every system has collapsed. We don't know it, and it's having to be rebuilt. So if you are looking at yourself and you're saying, I don't feel good, I didn't save enough money, I got my family in this situation, I shouldn't have bought the car, I shouldn't have moved into the home, I shouldn't have been mean on my job, I should have, graduated from a college so that I could, take care of my family. Whatever those I should have done that you didn't do, whatever that is, listen, this is the season to rebuild.
Yes.
Wherever you are right now, you can change it. Find someone who's doing what you want to do, tap them and ask them, what do I need to do? They're free, and let them free you. You've got to allow for yourself to be free. Free people, free people.
Woo! I already told you, I'm just mesmerized. This has been heavy. This is the time to rebuild. I'm loving the comments out there. Folks talking about they're gonna take that line from you. Talking about, I'm gonna steal that line. Just make sure, Nick, you give us some type of recompense. People out here saying love that, rebuild, and some good steps. There were even just a couple of questions. I'm just going to tap on them real quick because we have come to an end. Someone was asking, again, I think it was Nick, about is forgiveness always an instantaneous decision of the will, or can it be a processional experience as well? I think that for each person, it is an individual, unique situation. There are certain things that when you say, I'm over it, it's just boom. I've had those experiences where I just said, today I'm done. And I was done, and I just felt freer. I felt lighter. And even when, let me say this, even when you know that you did not do something wrong, we didn't touch on this, it is still good for you to ask for forgiveness. Woo! That is so freeing.
I was just going to say there's freedom in forgiveness. And I'll go back to the scripture, Matthew 6:15. And I know you may not have any, maybe some people on there that are not believers, but when the Bible says that God won't forgive you if you don't forgive, that was a done deal for me. I was like, what you mean he won't forgive? Listen, I'm going around forgiving everybody. You forgiving, you forgiving, you forgiving, you forgiving. Everybody forgiving quickly.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, it can come through that process as you're working it out with that professional, that mental health professional. It can come through if you're getting spiritual counseling. But let me tell you, you need to be in a place where you're being challenged. If you are not being confronted or being made to feel somewhat uncomfortable, I can tell you right now, that's not the place for you to be, because forgiveness does not feel good all the time. Being free doesn't always make you feel good as you go through that freedom. It's something you got to fight for. And so you have to practice it. Just like when you have to practice a piano or practice a sport or whatever it is, you don't like to practice. You just like to get into the game. But when you practice it, it becomes easier. It becomes more natural, becomes more organic, if you would. And so that's something that we have to do. And then let's move forward. Oh, I'm excited.
One thing though about that, just as you all were talking, I was thinking about that hadn't been touched on tonight. One, to forgive does not mean that person has to be in the room. You could forgive somebody with them not being present. Sometimes people have to forgive people who've already been passed away. So it does not require like someone else to be there, right? And the other thing is that sometimes we are offended by things that people have done. And we carry this weight of unforgiveness and they don't even know. They don't know that you have been offended. They don't know that they need to be forgiven. They don't know what they walking around happy. They're just like, what? You forgiving me for what? What did I do? And so here you are living this life in this place of unforgiveness and being consumed by it. And the person doesn't even know that you are hurt by it.
Wow.
And so that is why it has to be a personal experience, your forgiveness journey for you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people don't even know, or they're not even around anymore. So this is a very personal thing. So I just wanted to share that with those people who are out there today. I just thought that was
absolutely. Well, it's time to wrap this thing up. Oh, woo! This has been heavy, and it's so insightful, inspirational. I'm so thankful, as I told you, that we were going to have a conversation that if you don't feel better by now, you need to probably go back and watch this again. That's what you need to do. Call somebody, let them know, go back to my social media pages. You can go to Hope Health Systems. I encourage everybody to go to Hope Health Systems. This is my employer. I've been with them for 9 years now, over 9 years, believe it or not. And I enjoy being there, serving as chief medical director. But you can go there and view all of our broadcasts. Since March of this year, we have been on every single Friday. And it's nothing but the goodness of God that has allowed for that to happen. I'm very grateful for this time of sharing and imparting and for helping people. Thank you, Dr. Edwards, for what you have done today. Please tell the people where they can reach you and where they can purchase any publications that you would like them to have.
Where can you reach me? Well, you can on Facebook is at Antwonique Edwards, Antwonique Edwards is my Facebook handle. So it's my name, which actually isn't up here, but it's ANNTWANIQUE, actually phonetically correct. Imagine that. And so publications, excuse me. I said to Dr. Shepherd when he invited me on, please don't try to make people think I'm an expert like you. I can't reign strong like you do. But for the little work that I have done, most of the things you can find on Amazon. I am an author of the book, Daddy, Where Are You? Where is Thy Faith? Single Purpose, and some other things coming to you soon. I also have a prayer CD entitled Shift, which is based on shifting your mindset and your faith level by standing on the Word of God, and a USB that's entitled Up, which is focused on thinking positively. So we know that the Word declares to us to think on those things which are above. And so I do believe that our thinking really directs what happens. And Mitch just said that at the very beginning, right? Like how we think, it directs our actions. Our behavior follows our thinking and our thoughts. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. We pray God's blessings upon you for strength, health. Absolutely. You are needed. All right. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. All right. All right, my friend, Misha Maynard, where can we reach you? Where can the folks, you know you're muted, right?
Yeah.
Where can the people reach out to you? Are there any publications or any places, websites, anything like that, where the folks can get in contact?
I would just tell people to find me on my Conversations Facebook page. So if you just put the search in field of Conversations, you can tag me there, hit the like button. I'm there every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can IM me there as well, and I can reach out to you. We can correspond. Yeah.
And she is faithful. She's consistent. I have seen her on Sunday mornings.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The pandemic has not shut her down.
Right.
If anything, it's lit the fire, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And let me say that this pandemic has lit a fire under me like never before. And so I'm just so privileged to be able to be with you all each week. So look out for these ladies and for the work that will be coming down the pipeline for them. We got to have them back. Oh, man. The responses have been tremendous. So, yes, let's look for another time to come back. I want you all to hold tight there. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all. Hope Health Systems, located in Woodlawn, Maryland, which is a suburb of Baltimore, Maryland, 410-265-8737. Or you can look us up online at hopehealthsystems.com. We'll do you some good. If you know that you're in need of forgiveness, come on over. We'll do an intake and we'll help you to match up with a licensed clinical counselor or mental health professional. And so we can help work through that forgiveness. You don't have to go into 2021 being the same person that you were when this pandemic struck. It's time to let some things go and let's move forward. Forgive and let's move on. Please stay safe out there. I talked to you already about the coronavirus deaths and things like that. We're about to enter, and I shouldn't say about, we have already entered into one of the worst seasons of this pandemic. But I want you to stay strong. There's hope still. There's still a light at the end of the tunnel. This pandemic doesn't have to take you out. So please stay hopeful. Wash your hands, wear your mask, all right, and watch your distance. Until next week, we'll see you once again. Thank you so much. Dr. Shepherd signing out.